The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey is one of the most practical books on how to improve your life. In today's video, we'll break down the 7 habits, showing you how to take control of your life, build strong relationships, and create lasting success. We'll explore what actually creates real change. Not surface-level techniques, but the habits that shape who you are. Let's get started. Act 0. The Foundation. Imagine you're walking through a subway station. You see a man sitting on a bench. His kids are completely out of control, running everywhere, shouting, knocking into people, and he's just sitting there, doing nothing. You feel that slow rise of irritation. Come on, control your kids. So you walk over and say something. He looks at you and says, "Oh, I'm sorry. We just came from the hospital. Their mother died an hour ago. I don't really know what to do." And just like that, everything changes. In a few seconds, your entire interpretation collapses and rebuilds itself. Covey calls this a paradigm shift. It's when you realize something simple but powerful. You're not seeing reality. You're seeing your interpretation of it. You're seeing it through a map. And we all move through life using our own mental maps. It shapes how you see people, what you believe is possible, what you think you deserve. But those maps aren't reality. As Covey put it, we see the world not as it is, but as we are or as we are conditioned to see it. Because your map was built by your past, your family, your culture, your education, your experiences, long before you ever questioned it. That's why Covey said, the map is not the territory. Your perception of reality isn't reality itself. And because it affects how you see the world, it shapes your decisions. And those decisions shape your relationships and your results. Which means, if your map is wrong, no amount of effort will get you where you want to go. You'll just keep working harder in the wrong direction. That's why most self-improvement advice doesn't work. It focuses on personality, techniques, what to say, how to act, how to appear confident. It teaches you how to look better, not how to become better. And yes, it can work in the short term. They might get you through a job interview. They might smooth a difficult conversation. But it doesn't work in the long run because it ignores something deeper, who you are, your character. And eventually, who you really are comes out, no matter how good the technique is. So, without character, everything stays surface level. It's like painting over a cracked wall. And that's the shift this book makes. The idea is simple. You become what you repeatedly are. So the 7 habits aren't techniques. They are a framework for changing your character. So if the goal is to build character, how does that actually happen? Through habits. As Covey put it, sow a thought, reap an action. Sow an action, reap a habit. Sow a habit, reap a character. Sow a character, reap a destiny. Your life is the result of what you do repeatedly. And every habit is built on 3 things. Knowledge, you need to know what to do. Skill, you need to know how to do it. And desire, you need to actually want to do it. Miss one and the habit doesn't stick. That's why most advice fails. It gives you knowledge, but not the skill or the desire to follow through. The 7 habits work at all 3 levels. They help you understand why, they show you how, and over time, they change what you want. Now, why are there 7 habits? Because they follow a path, a natural progression of human growth. Covey calls it the maturity continuum. At the beginning of life, we all start in a state of dependence. As a child, you can't survive without others. In this stage, the paradigm is you. You take care of me. Your results depend on what people around you do. As we grow, the natural trajectory is toward independence. This is the paradigm of I. I can do it. I am responsible for my own life. Here, you act for yourself. But that's not the final stage. It's just a step along the way. Because the highest level maturity is interdependence. This is the paradigm of we. We can do more together than either of us could alone. And this is where the 7 habits fit perfectly. Act 1. Fix yourself first. The first 3 habits are about the relationship you have with yourself. Because before you can fix anything outside, you have to take control of what's inside. Before you can lead a team, before you can repair a marriage, before you can build anything meaningful with someone, you need to win the battle inside your own head. Habit 1. Take back control of your life. In 1942, a Viennese psychiatrist named Viktor Frankl was arrested by the Nazis and sent to a series of concentration camps. Everything was taken from him: his home, his freedom, his wife, who later died in the camps. And in the middle of all of that, Frankl realized that his torturers could control almost everything about him: his body, his environment, his physical comfort. But they could not control the last human freedom: the freedom to choose how he responded to what was happening to him. In the space between what happens to you and how you respond to it, there is a gap. And in that gap lives your entire character, your entire identity, your entire freedom. And that idea is what Covey calls proactivity. It's about a simple realization: you are responsible for your life. Your behavior comes from your choices, not your conditions. When you don't choose, you're just reacting. Covey gives a simple way to test how proactive you are. Listen to the words you use. Reactive language sounds like this: I can't do that. He makes me so mad. Every one of those sentences hands control to something outside of you: other people, circumstances, the past. Proactive language sounds different. I choose not to do that. I control my own feelings. Nothing outside has changed, but the person has taken their freedom back. So those are the two ways to fill that gap. And in everyday life, this is what it looks like: two circles: the circle of concern and the circle of influence. Your circle of concern includes everything you care about: the economy, your country's politics, your neighbor's opinion of you, whether your favorite sports team wins the championship. It's large, and most of it is outside your control. Your circle of influence is much smaller. It includes the things you can actually do something about: your attitude, your habits, your work, how you treat people, what you say when you open your mouth. And where you focus your energy changes everything. Reactive people spend most of their energy in the circle of concern. They worry, they complain, they focus on problems they can't control. And over time, their circle of influence slowly shrinks, because energy spent on things you can't control is energy not spent on things you can. Proactive people do the opposite. They focus on what they can influence. They act, they adjust, they take responsibility, and their influence grows. Covey puts it simply: anytime we think the problem is out there, that thought is the problem. This sounds simple. It isn't. It is genuinely one of the hardest mental shifts a person can make, because our culture rewards blame. It encourages complaint. But becoming proactive means accepting a harder truth: you can't control what happens, but you can always control how you show up. Habit 2. Know where you're going. Picture yourself at a funeral. The room is full. There are people from every part of your life. You walk toward the front and you realize it's your funeral. 3 people are going to speak. 1 is from your family, 1 is a close friend, and 1 is a colleague. What do you want them to say about you? What kind of person do you want to have been? What do you want to have built? How do you want to have treated people? Whatever you just imagined, that's your mission. That's the life you should be building every single day. Because everything in your life follows the same pattern. There's always a first creation in your mind, and then a second creation in reality. The problem is, most people never design the first one. They don't live intentionally. They don't decide what they're trying to build. So they end up building by default. They drift, they react, they optimize for whatever feels urgent today. And years later, they realize they were climbing a ladder that was leaning against the wrong wall. You can be busy, you can be efficient, but you'll only be effective when you start with the end in mind. Because if you don't decide what your life should look like, something else will. Your environment, other people's expectations, social pressure. And that's how people end up living someone else's life. So, to avoid that, you need a personal mission statement. This is not a weekend exercise, something you write once and forget. It's something you refine over time. It answers 2 questions. Who do you want to become? And what do you want to contribute? That mission becomes your filter. When you face a decision, a job offer, a conflict, a temptation to compromise, you ask, does this move me closer to the life I'm trying to build, or further away? Because without that clarity, you don't choose your life. You react to it. Habit 3. Focus on what actually matters. There's an old story about a woodcutter. He's been sawing a tree for hours. A traveler walks by and notices the saw is dull, it's barely cutting. "Why don't you stop and sharpen your saw?" he asks. The woodcutter looks up, exhausted. "I don't have time," he says. "I'm too busy cutting." And this is exactly how most people live. They spend their days dealing with what feels urgent, while the things that would truly move their life forward get postponed. But you can fix this. Imagine a box divided into 4 quadrants. On one side, important versus not important. On the other, urgent versus not urgent. Quadrant 1 is important and urgent. These are crises, deadlines, medical emergencies. Some of us live here almost entirely. We're always putting out fires. We feel productive because there's always something pressing to handle, but we are entirely reactive. Quadrant 2 is important but not urgent. This is the quadrant of prevention, planning, relationships, personal growth, and long-term goals. This is where the things that actually matter to you take shape. And because nothing here screams for your attention, it gets ignored. Quadrant 3 is urgent but not important. Phone calls, other people's interruptions, meetings that could have been emails. This quadrant is sneaky because it feels like quadrant 1. The urgency creates an illusion of importance. But when you look closely, the results don't actually serve any of your real goals. Quadrant 4 is not important and not urgent. Mindless scrolling, entertainment that isn't refreshing you. This is where you go when you're too drained to do anything else. So, if you want to move your life forward, this is where your time needs to go. Quadrant 2. But that takes discipline. Covey calls this independent will, the ability to act on what matters, even when you don't feel like it. Because if you want to spend more time on what's important, that time has to come from somewhere. And most of the time, it comes from things that feel urgent, or things that don't really matter, which requires a specific skill. The ability to say no. It's the ability to follow through on your decisions, instead of being controlled by your mood, your environment, or the pressure of the moment. And this is exactly where most people fail. Because they think it's urgent, they agree to be interrupted, they reply to every message, they follow other people's requests, instead of doing what actually matters to them. And when they're tired, they grab their phone, scroll through social media, or turn on Netflix instead of resting properly, getting good sleep, going for a walk, or spending real time with someone. And the reason is simple. They don't have a clear sense of what actually matters. No mission, no defined priorities. That's why habit 2 matters so much. When you're clear on what matters to you, you have the strength to protect your time. You are able to say no. So when you're clear, discipline follows. Habit 2 creates the foundation. It defines your direction. Habit 3 is how you live that direction day by day. So how do you actually spend more time on what matters? Covey suggests something simple. Plan your week, not your day. Start by identifying your key roles. Who are you this week? Maybe you're a student, a friend, a partner. Then, for each role, choose 2 or 3 important results you want to achieve. Not urgent tasks, but things that actually move your life forward. Ideally, these should connect to the bigger direction you defined earlier. Then, schedule them. Block time for those priorities first, before the urgent things take over your calendar. Because quadrant 2 never happens on its own. If you don't schedule it, it doesn't happen. And finally, adjust daily. Each morning, take a few minutes to review your plan, adapt if needed, and stay aligned with what actually matters. Up to this point, the entire journey has been internal. The first habit is about taking responsibility for your life. The second is about creating that life. The third is about executing on it day by day. This is the private victory, but it is not the end. Because no one lives alone. You have relationships, colleagues, a partner, maybe, a family. And the way you deal with people is a completely different skill from the way you manage yourself. Act 2. Master people and relationships. The following habits are about how you work with other people, how you build relationships, how you communicate, and how you create something better together. Habit 4. Stop playing win-lose. From a very early age, you're taught that life is a competition. In school, you're constantly compared to others. In sports, someone has to lose. In job interviews, getting the role means someone else didn't. So, over time, you start to believe something simple. When someone else wins, there's less left for you. Covey calls this the scarcity mentality. People with a scarcity mentality find it genuinely difficult to celebrate other people's successes. It's why someone else's promotion can sting, why a friend's success can feel like a threat, why a colleague's good idea can trigger defensiveness instead of excitement. The opposite of this is the abundance mentality. It's the belief that there is enough for everyone, that success is not a zero-sum game, that your success doesn't require someone else to lose, and that when people work together, they can create something neither could have created alone. And depending on how you see the world, you approach relationships very differently. Some people operate from win-lose. I succeed, you don't. Others fall into lose-win. I give in, I avoid conflict, and I sacrifice my own needs. This is often called humility, but it is usually fear. Then there's lose-lose. I will sacrifice my own position to prevent you from winning. It is devastatingly common in divorces, in political negotiations, in failing organizations. But the goal is win-win. I want us both to win, and if we can't find a solution that works for both of us, then walking away is the better outcome. No deal is better than a bad deal. Because win-win only works when expectations are clear, when both sides understand what success looks like and agree on it. But this is not easy, because win-win requires two things at the same time. Courage, the ability to stand for what you need, and consideration, the ability to respect what the other person needs. Most people have one, but not both. Too much courage without consideration creates aggressive people. Too much consideration without courage creates people who give in. Win-win requires both at the same time. But this is not easy, because win-win only works if you know what a win actually is for you. That's why everything we covered in habits 1, 2, and 3 matters. That's where that clarity comes from. They help you define what really matters to you. And once that's clear, you can stand for what you need and stay open to others at the same time. That's the balance win-win requires. And that only works if you believe it's actually possible for both sides to win. That's the abundance mentality. But even with the right mindset, win-win cannot exist without trust. Covey explains this through the idea of an emotional bank account. Every relationship you have carries a balance of trust. Every act of honesty, respect, or genuine listening is a deposit. Keeping your word, clarifying expectations, even apologizing first. Every broken promise or selfish action is a withdrawal. And over time, that balance determines everything about the relationship. When the account is full, communication is easy. People trust your intent. Mistakes are forgiven. But when the account is overdrawn, everything becomes difficult. Every word is questioned. Every gesture is suspect. And this is exactly what the circle of influence is about. You can't control how others behave. That's outside of it. But you can control the deposits you make, and that's where your real influence is. Over time, those deposits change the relationship. Win-win is only possible when the account is strong, because without trust, you might reach an agreement, but you won't build a real relationship. Habit 5. Listen like it actually matters. Imagine you go to the doctor. Before you even finish explaining your problem, the doctor has already written a prescription and is handing it to you. But you haven't even examined me, you say. I've seen this 1,000 times, the doctor replies. Trust me. You wouldn't trust that doctor, and you'd be right not to. Because prescribing before diagnosing is malpractice. But watch how you listen the next time someone you care about is trying to tell you something difficult. Notice how quickly you start thinking about what to say next, how fast you move to advice, to reassurance, to your own story. Covey says we're all malpracticing doctors. We're all prescribing before we've truly understood. As Covey explains, the biggest communication problem is that we do not listen to understand. We listen to reply. To see the difference, Covey breaks listening down into 4 levels. At the lowest level, you simply repeat what the person said. You're listening, but barely. Then you begin to rephrase it in your own words. Now you're actually processing what they mean. Next, you focus on how they feel, not just the words, but the emotion behind them. And at the highest level, you do both. You understand what they're saying and how they feel about it. That's what Covey calls empathic listening. It means giving someone your full attention. and making a real effort to understand how they see things. The goal isn't to reply or to fix, it's to understand. And this is a skill you can train. But listening at that level doesn't come naturally. So what does it actually require? It requires putting your own opinions aside, your need to be right, your need to be understood. And it requires being open to the idea that the other person might be seeing something you're missing. And when you do this, people feel it. And when someone feels genuinely heard, the defensiveness drops. They become more open, more willing to listen. Covey calls this giving someone psychological air. Picture it like this. When you can't breathe, all you think about is air. And when you don't feel understood, all you think about is being heard. So when you truly listen, you give that person what they need most. And once that need is met, they can finally think about something other than themselves. Most people don't need a solution right away. They need to feel understood first. If you want to be understood, you have to understand first. And this is the foundation of real influence. And this is what makes win-win possible in the first place. Because, as we've seen, it requires two things: consideration and courage. Listening is the consideration. Being understood is the courage. And if you want your ideas to actually land, there's a simple order to follow. First, show your integrity and credibility. That means being honest about what you think and consistent with what you've said and done before. Then connect with how the other person feels. Show them you understand their perspective, and only then bring in logic. When you explain your ideas in a way that connects to what they care about, what they're worried about, and how they see the situation, your message doesn't feel like an argument. It feels relevant. And that's when people actually start listening. Habit 6. Turn differences into strength. Most interactions follow one of two paths. Either we compromise, I give up some of what I want, you give up some of what you want, we meet in the middle, and everyone goes home slightly dissatisfied. Or one of us wins, and the other loses. Synergy is a third option. It's a different way of looking at things. What if your disagreement with me isn't something to manage, but something to explore? Covey uses the image of two plants. Put them in the same soil, and instead of competing, their roots intertwine, and together they grow stronger than either could alone. But this only works under one condition: psychological security. Without that security, differences are seen as threatening. When someone thinks differently, it feels like your own view is being challenged. And that feels like a threat to your identity. So, you defend, you protect your position, you try to be right. But when you're secure, it's different. You've done the private work of the first three habits. You know who you are and what you stand for. You don't need everyone to agree with you. So instead of defending, you get curious. You try to understand what the other person might be seeing that you're missing. And depending on these conditions, the outcome changes. Imagine two axes. On one side, trust, from low to high. On the other, cooperation. When both are low, people become defensive. Everyone protects their position. Nothing new is created. When there's some openness but not enough trust, you get compromise. People meet in the middle, but no one is fully satisfied. But when both trust and cooperation are high, that's where synergy happens. That's where people stop defending their ideas and start building something better together. And when you genuinely respect a different perspective, not just tolerate it, but really try to understand it, you stop defending your map and start exploring the territory. And in that exploration, new solutions appear. Solutions neither person could have found alone. And this is why most people never experience true synergy. Because it requires letting go of something most people hold on to: the need to be right. Synergy is the result of all the previous habits. It's what becomes possible when you take responsibility for your life, when you have a clear direction, when you focus on what matters, when you approach relationships with a win-win orientation, and when you truly listen. And this is what Covey calls the public victory. It's about creating something better together. Act 3. Don't burn out. Up to this point, you've learned how to take control of your life and how to work effectively with others. But there's a problem. Even the most effective people burn out. They lose focus, they lose energy, they lose clarity, because growth is not something you achieve once. It's something you have to maintain, and that's what the final habit is about. It's about renewing yourself so you can keep growing. Habit 7. Don't lose yourself along the way. There's an old fable about a farmer and a goose. One day, he discovers something incredible: The goose lays a golden egg, one per day after day. At first, it's enough. He becomes wealthy. But then, he gets impatient. One egg a day isn't fast enough. He starts thinking, there must be more inside the goose. So he kills the goose to get all the eggs at once. But there are no eggs. There is no treasure. There is only a dead goose. This story shows a problem most people never notice. We focus on the results and forget about what produces them. The golden eggs are the results you want, your achievements, your progress, the things you're working toward. But the goose, that's your ability to produce those results, your health, your energy, your relationships, your focus. And most people sacrifice the goose to get more eggs. They push through exhaustion. They skip the exercise because there isn't time. They neglect their relationships because work is more urgent. They stop learning because there's always something pressing. And it works, for a while, until it doesn't. Habit 7 is about something simple but often ignored, taking care of what keeps you going. Covey identifies 4 dimensions that need regular care and renewal. Neglect any one of them and it will eventually undermine all the others. The physical dimension: exercise, sleep, nutrition. This is the one most people acknowledge and most people neglect. If your energy is low, everything becomes harder. Your focus drops. Your patience disappears. Your thinking slows down. All of it runs on the engine of your physical well-being. The spiritual dimension: your values, your direction, your sense of meaning. This is your connection to what matters most. Meditation, time in nature, prayer, reading great literature, music that moves you to your core. The spiritual dimension is what keeps you oriented toward what matters when the daily noise is loudest. The mental dimension: reading, writing, learning. As Mark Twain once said, the person who does not read is not better than the one who does not know how to read. As soon as people leave school, most of them stop learning. They stay in their comfort zone. They stick to what they already know and stop exploring anything new. And passive consumption doesn't help. It often does the opposite. Covey recommends writing in particular, because writing forces clarity. You can't write something clearly if you don't understand it. The social and emotional dimension: your relationships, how you connect with people, how you show up for others. Research consistently shows that the deepest source of long-term well-being is not achievement, not wealth, not status. It is the quality of your relationships. But none of this sustains itself. There's a reason habit 7 is not habit 1. You can be healthy, focused, and balanced and still be working on the wrong things. That's why Covey starts with direction first. Habit 7 doesn't replace the other 6 habits. It keeps them alive. It's the discipline of stepping back and asking, am I still growing? Am I still focused on what actually matters? And the problem is, this never feels urgent. There's no alarm telling you to take care of yourself, no deadline pushing you to reflect. So it gets pushed aside, again and again, unless you choose a moment for it, to exercise, to read, to think, and protect that time. Because when you do, you regain the energy and clarity everything else depends on. And that's why this habit connects back to all the others. It's not a step, it's a cycle. And if you stop renewing yourself, everything else slowly breaks down.